What's going on, guys? My name is Josh Jones. I'm a classic physique competitor and an online coach. We just hit a leg day. This is my first time back on YouTube in quite some time. Trust me, I am gonna get back on top of pumping out more videos for you guys. If you guys are new to the channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate your feedback and support. We're now starting our growth phase for this upcoming competition season. We are gonna requalify this year so that we can do our first pro qualifier at North American so I can go for my pro card. I may actually bring out the board shorts again in men's physique, but obviously the goal is to compete in classic physique. But you know, wherever I land best, you know, in terms of winning my pro card this year, I'll take it. And then that way I can compete in the pro league as a classic physique competitor. And let me know what you guys want to see on some of the next videos, and we'll see you guys soon. So one of the main reasons why I like to start off with leg extensions and then I go right into a round of walking lunges is because I'm able to get all the blood into my quads, and I'm also able to loosen up the hips and joints, because the last thing you want to have happen is, as soon as you start getting into your heavier compound movements, is you don't want that load transferring to the hips and joints and into your lower back. So I always say that the best thing to do is to get as much mobility as possible. Try to get rid of like those cranky joints, and that way you're putting all the tension on the targeted muscle that you're looking to train for that session. Now we're gonna move on to our first exercise, which is standing calf raises. I'm a big advocate for training calves at the start of your leg day, because generally speaking, like myself, calves are a weaker body part of mine. And I find that you're able to get the most out of that movement when you put it towards the first half of your workout versus moving it towards the end, where you're already tired, you're already fatigued, and you're not gonna put as much effort into that exercise. So when you do standing calf raises, one thing I like to focus on is the eccentric part of the movement. So the general tempo I like to work with is 3 seconds on the way down with a 1 second pause, and then I'll explode from the bottom on the way up. So it's gonna be about like a 2 second concentric, because the one thing about standing calf raises, again, people don't really take them seriously, and that's why their calves aren't growing. So the number one thing is you want to treat every body part the same in terms of intensity, because if it is a weaker body part for you, that is what's going to help it grow a lot faster. So make sure you pay attention to your tempo, get under some heavy weight, and just get right after it. So we just got done with standing calf raises. We did 3 sets here, 2 heavier top sets around 10 to 12 reps. Then we backed down the weight and went down to a set of 15 reps. Now we're gonna move on to adductors and abductors as a superset, just to get the hips and get the inner thighs nice and warmed up right before we jump into our heavier squat movements. All right, so we've now moved on to abductors. So this is just to get the glutes nice and firing. And then we'll move on to adductors to warm up the inner thighs. And I think it is super important to warm up both parts of the leg, mainly because these are stabilizer muscles. And the one thing you want when you do a squat or a leg press is that you want your knee to track in line with your toes. You don't want to start to develop what they call knee valgus. Knee valgus is like a condition where your knees start to cave in when you're doing a squat variation, especially once you start to fatigue a little bit, and you know you're putting yourself at risk for an injury there, like a torn meniscus or ACL. Something that I want to talk about when it comes to warm-up sets, you don't want to. The whole purpose of a warm-up set, or they also call it a feeder set, is that you're slowly working up in weight before you get to those heavier top sets. So the exercise cadence or the rep scheme, you should start off somewhere around, I would say 7 to 8 reps with 50% of your working weight. Then you'll do about 3 or 4 reps with 70 to 75% of your working weight. And then, you know, if you feel, either you can jump right into your working set, or you can do one more feeder set of like just 1 to 2 reps around 90 to 95% of your working weight, because at the end of the day, the whole purpose of the feeder set is to get your central nervous system primed to be under that load. So don't Don't waste time doing warm-up sets of like 10 to 15 reps, because all you're gonna do is fatigue yourself and you're not gonna be able to put as much effort into those top working sets. So what we got going on now is some seated hamstring curls. This is our last movement before we go into a pendulum squat. And again, I like to, before I get into my heavier quad work, I like to start off with a hamstring movement because it does warm up the knees from the back. Whereas when you do leg extensions, sometimes it can cause a little bit of knee discomfort. So what I like to do personally is I'll save them towards the very end of the workout. That way I don't need to go nearly as heavy. I can just focus on getting a deep stretch at the bottom and then a hard contraction at the top. We're gonna work up to about 2 working sets here, 1 top set, 1 back off, and then we're gonna go right into pendulum squats. Yeah, I add bands and it just adds a little bit more tension towards the top or in the mid-range of the movement. The Atlantis pendulum squat. This is my favorite movement for quads. I feel like I can get the right type of positioning, especially being a little bit taller. I got longer limbs, so I'm able to really drive my knees over my toes to fully lengthen the quad. The goal with like training your quads and being able to actually grow your quads is getting as much knee bend as possible under a heavy load. And same thing as I preached before is having proper tempo. So I like to focus on a 2 to 3 second negative on the way down. I like to pause in the hole for like 1 second. And then I like to explode up, making sure that I'm putting all the tension in my quads and not using every other body part just to get the weight up. So give that a try on your next leg day and let me know what you think. Now I gotta bust out these knee sleeves. Move on to a single-legged leg press and leg extension to finish off the workout. Yeah, so we got single leg press. I normally was gonna do a back off set on the pendulum squat, but I honestly felt like I got the most out of the movement. And it's not me trying to take the easy way out of things, but sometimes like when you feel like you got a good pump from one working set, just move on. Sometimes you just don't have it in you to do another set. And sometimes doing that extra set can be counterproductive based off of how you're feeling. And that's something that I've had to learn over the years of training is you got to train a little bit more intuitively. Now, if you're a beginner, you're not really going to understand that because you don't have that mind-muscle connection and body awareness to be able to get a maximum contraction and stimulus out of an exercise off of one working set. But, I've been at this for like 10 years. So I just listen to my body on that day. And if I feel like I got 1 set, I'll do 1 set. If I feel like I can do 2 or 3 sets, I'll do more sets. And then I'll move on to the next exercise. So now we're doing our last and final exercise of the workout as we're finishing off with some leg extensions. So the goal here, we're only doing like one all-out set. We're doing what we call a cluster set. So a cluster set is like a modified rest pause set where you're doing a high rep set in 4 or 5 increments. So we're gonna try to shoot for about 20 reps total, but we're gonna go for 5 reps each round. And we're gonna rest for about 15 to 20 seconds in between and go to failure.
Done now?
Yeah, I'm done.